And when I grew up and I found all that out, and like I grew up and I started understanding stuff, it was harder for me to love than to receive it. It was like harder for me to receive the love or to let people into my life so easily because I've been hurt once before, and I kept thinking I was gonna get hurt again, once again, and so it was like really hard for me, and like people would come and I would just like shut them off. I would shut the whole world off. I would be going through stuff. I wouldn't tell anybody. I would keep it to myself. And I would like, I would cry. I would keep it to myself for when I would get home, and I would just go at my house and just cry in my room. And it just wasn't healing. It was just going, like every time something would happen, I would keep it to myself. And I wouldn't express it to nobody else. And it was like this thing that I just kept getting hurt, and then in the inside I was like, it was bad in the inside, but then on the outside I was being there for people, and I was putting up this fake smile, and I was just having a lot of stuff. And when like people would ask me, oh, what's wrong, I'd be like, oh, nothing. I would shut them off. And then my mom started going through this process where she got breast cancer, and then it was hard because my sister came back from Mexico, and it was hard for me to accept it because before that she had left like a year or two ago, and well, I had cried a lot even though I was little, and I don't really remember. My mom tells me I cried a lot because of that, and I was still kind of hurt because she left, and so I guess when she came in, it was hard for me to accept the fact that she was going to be here with us and she was going to be staying for us. But what I also didn't accept was that she was like, I don't know for how long I'm going to be staying, but it's going to be till my mom finishes this whole process. And that's when I realized that it was like, I was like, well, she's going to leave again, and it's going to be the same all over, and then she's going to come back in a couple of years, and it's going to be the same over and over again. And it was hard for me to accept it, and it's been like 2 or 3 months, and then at the same time when my mom started going through stuff, I started going through stuff, but I wouldn't tell anybody anything. Like I would just be going through stuff, and when I was at my other school, I was a totally different person. People see me now and they're like, you've really changed and stuff like that, and I'm just like, well, yeah. It's totally the crowd you hang out with, because at my other school I was getting in all this sort of trouble, and I was like putting it in into the hurt that I had and trying to fill that in, but it wasn't really helping, so I just kept getting in trouble. And it got to the point where my mom would go to the meetings that she would have with the teachers, and she would cry. Like I would see her disappointment tears in her eyes, and she would just cry about it. And then she'd be like, I'm not even mad at you, I'm disappointed. I never thought you'd be like this. And bless you. And that last time I got in real big trouble was when I realized that it wasn't good. I lied to my mom when I got in trouble. I got suspended from my last school, and I said it was because of something else when it really was because of this other thing. And then when my mom found out from the other side, she's like, I'm disappointed I had to find out from this person and not let you tell me what had really happened. And then she's like, and now everybody knows. And she was like really disappointed in me, right? And it was this thing, if I had guilt for other stuff, it was just this thing that came back to weigh on me and to like come, and it was more guilt on me, and I was like, well, yeah, I made my mom cry, this and that. And then I moved to my new school, and then she was like, well, hopefully they don't get you in trouble at this school, and which is the school I'm at now. And then so I guess last year I got into some trouble at school, and I was like, this is just gonna keep happening every year now, huh? And that was when I was still going through some stuff, but the thing is that I didn't open myself up. I closed myself to the world, and it was just me, and no one was here to help me. Like, my friends friends, yeah, they were here. But then when they saw me going through some stuff, they wouldn't stick up for me because they were fake friends. And they just weren't there for me when I was there for them and stuff happened. And like I started realizing like the true colors of these people and of the people that said they were my friends. And I realized that it was just gonna be me. And at that point, I had given up. I was like, I don't care anymore. Whatever. And then I guess I moved to the school, and then I got into some more trouble. And then my mom got like mad at me, but disappointed at the same time. And she was like, and then that's where like it really hit me, because she was like, why can't you be like your sister? And then I was like, because I'm not her. And she's like, well, yeah, but your sister used to get good grades, and now you're not even trying at school. And then she's like, your sister's really smart. She's exceeding in all this, blah, 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 blah. And that's where I was like, it's not fair. And I was like, I didn't say anything because I was just like, okay, I would just listen to her at that point and not even say anything. And so I guess she would like say that. She would always say, yeah, I'm disappointed at you. I thought that you'd be different and stuff. And she was like, at least your sister wasn't like this at school. And then I was just like, oh, whatever, that's that. And when that happened, I was like, well, hopefully my sister never comes back here. And then when my mom got through the process and she came back, that was when like, I was like, oh, she came back, but I was hoping she wouldn't. And I was still going through all that stuff. And then I didn't want to be open to her. I wasn't open to anybody at all. I was very closed up, and whatever I was going through, people would ask me, and I would just be like, oh, nothing, it's fine. Or fine, whatever, I have something in my eye. But people would know it wasn't true. But then it just kept, my heart kept getting like tougher and tougher on the outside, because I would know how to deal with this pain that I would just put up with and save for later, until the moment there was that I would just break. But I wouldn't break in front of people because I didn't like to cry in front of people. I'd be like, yeah, fine, whatever. And I would put up this stuff, tough appearance on the outside, and on the inside I was just broken. And it wasn't like the best self that I've ever been, and it was just like me being what other people have changed me into. Because at that point I wasn't even myself. Like I've known some friends that had gotten into some really bad stuff because of other friends, and it's just like I wouldn't do that, because they call themselves your friends. But then when you go and you're dealing through stuff and you're going through stuff, and when they can put their face up for you, they just leave. And that's when you realize that not a lot of people are meant for this day. Some people are just here for the short term, and some people are here for the long term. And honestly, like, after I moved to the school, I moved in 6th grade. 6th grade, I did mostly online because of COVID. But then 7th grade came, and I was doing okay. And then I got into some like really bad trouble. And then this year, it was like I was good, but then I was bad some days, and then I was like not, and then like not at all. And then I started dating like a bunch of people, like just to like cover up for that, and like a bunch, like it was just like you can't count the numbers. It was just like, oh yeah, he likes me, sure, let's date, whatever. And it wouldn't be like something, oh, I really like you, that's why I'm gonna date you, and you're a really nice person, you treat me right. It was like the worst relationships you could ever be with. You would just be there because they liked you in that day, and then the next day they were like, oh no, whatever, I don't like you anymore. And then you just kept getting hurt and hurt and hurt, and then you get to the point where you just break. And that's when Mr. Greg came in last year, and when he came, I was like, nah, I'm not gonna like try to go into stuff like that, I'm just like not gonna try to change because I'm cool as I am. I'm settling as I am. I like to settle with people. I'm not myself, and I just settle. But then, um, but then last last year when he came, I was like trying not to like talk to him and to Mr. Greg and just like keep myself to myself and not even realize like what was going on. If they did something, that was them. I was closed off in my little world, and I had a lot of fake friends then. So it would just be like a lot of stuff, and it was like a lot of drama too. And it was just like when Mr. Greg would come, I would want to. There was something I was telling me, just go, like ask him for prayer or do something. But then the other side was like, no, my ego was higher than that, and I was just like, no, because then people are actually gonna see your true self, and they're gonna see your kindness, and they're gonna see who you actually are, and like you crying, and that was like my worst thing. Like I would hate people see me crying. Like when someone would see me crying, they'd be like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Oh, nothing." And then like even I wouldn't even tell my mom what was wrong. Like she'd be like, "Hey, why are you crying?" I'm like, "Oh, nothing." And she was like, "Okay." And like it was so close off. But then this year, like I came. I was just more open because I had been getting hurt for the past like 3 years. And then all of a sudden it was like Mr. Greg came in, and it was just like he started to change stuff little by little at the school, and I was like, well, maybe he's not the worst person at all, you know. And so I started to open up a little bit more. And then when I was just starting to open up, I got hurt again. And then I was like, nah, this is why I don't open up, and I just stay in my little bubble and don't talk to no one and stuff like that. And even this year, I was just so closed up, and maybe a lot of people don't know. Maybe a lot of people don't think so because like how I am and stuff. Like I'm always loud and like doing stuff and stuff like that. But like inside, like I say, you put up a fake smile and just carry on with it. And like inside, you're not the person that you are on the outside. And people just ask you and stuff, and you just be like, oh yeah, no, I'm fine and stuff. But then it was like 2 or 3 weeks before camp, and Mr. Grice subbed for our class that day. I remember it. We were in science, and we did science. I remember he was walking around, and like we were doing this poster board. Me and Aaron and Alexa were doing this poster board, and he was just walking around. And when we were done, he started a conversation with like a bunch of people, with Jose, Dawson, Braden, and all of them. And like me and Aaron and Alexa just tagged on, and we were just there listening and stuff. And then that's where I started to open up, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna try and see what happens. So I opened up. I started to open up little by little to Mr. Greg, and that they were talking about all sorts of stuff. And I was like, well, you know, it's really not that bad. I think this time it might be different, and it might change and stuff. And then like when camp came, and then he was like, yeah, I'm gonna give you a word that God has on, blah 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 blah. I'm like, oh cool. And then so when I heard Mr. Ray wasn't going, I'm like, oh, so cool. Maybe it's gonna be different and stuff. And then a lot of things happened at camp, and then it was just like, oh yeah, a lot of things were different because Mr. Greg wasn't here. And then I guess after camp we bothered Mr. Greg so much, so he would give us the notes that he was gonna give us, like the word from God and stuff. And well, when he gave me the note, I was like, well, this is all true. And I was like, how'd you know all this? And I was like, you're a wizard. And I was like, this is magic. And he was like, no, it's not. And I was just like, I was like, well, how do you know all this? And he was like, well, God has been telling me all this stuff about you. And I was like, well, that's so accurate. And I was like, yeah, it's changed. it's just different now because I actually open up to people and I'm not so closed down. And I might still be hurting inside, but not as much as I used to. And now I just don't put up this fake smile. Sometimes I do, but most of the time I'm just myself, which is good because 2 or 3 years ago, I wasn't myself. You'd see me and I was a whole different person. I would be so quiet and I wouldn't talk. But I also would get into so much trouble and it would just not be good. And then this year, I started going into the same footsteps of every year until like 2 or 3 weeks before camp that we were talking to Mr. Ray. And like after camp, and before and after camps when I started changing, and it was a change for good. And I look back and I'm like, I never want to be who I was before because it was just, I was very unhappy. I was so insecure. And then I would cry a lot. I would cry myself to sleep sometimes. And it was just so, it was just a rough time. And I'm like, it was tough. And now I'm just happy I've changed. And I've grown from the person I was then to the person I am now. In Christ and in so many other ways. And now I'm just well, that's good for a lot of things because now I'm not getting into much trouble anymore as I used to. I'm changing little by little. I'm opening up to people. I don't know, I may not open up to most people, but I open up to the people I feel comfortable with and the people I know that I can trust and they won't say anything about it, but yeah, that's technically it. And yeah. Hey, Dad.
Okay.
We'll have time to share a little more.
We have time?